Oh yeah, everybody's filtering in a couple minutes, but glad you could make it, guys. We're gonna get started in just a minute.
A couple more added. All right, Ben, I'll let you know. Let me know when you want to kick off here.
We're at 4 minutes after. I say let's hit it, Jake.
All right, so we confirm that we can see my presentation screen right now, correct?
Correct.
All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us. As we get started here, we wanted to make a few notes. We are recording this. We can distribute it to anybody who's interested, and kind of the same as last time. The idea is to keep this pretty casual, have a discussion with our panelists here. And the topic of the day is the state of events. At the end of this, we are going to open it up to discussion. We went a little long last time, so we're hopefully going to wrap things up where we can open it up for questions. We'd love to have people join in on their video or chatting, but you can also use that chat function if that is more comfortable for you. So I'll start with intros. I'm Jake Toohey. I'm a senior digital consultant from Adage.
Hi, I'm Ben Muscolino, CEO of Breezio, and I've got a couple other companies, AMS Geek and AMS Jobs.
Joe.
Oh, hi. Hi, I'm Joe Post. I'm Vice President of Strategy and Design at Adage Tech.
And then we have our guest panelist. Very happy to have him, James.
Hey everyone, James Brixis. I'm a Regional Sales Director at Cvent, and super excited that these gentlemen invited me to join you all today. Looking forward to it.
And we are very happy to have you. So real
Thanks,
quickly,
James.
we have a brief agenda here. We are going to turn it over to James to kick us off and talk about what Cvent's seeing, what introduce everybody to Cvent, what they do. But then he's going to share some trends and some things that he's seeing in the market right now. We're going to talk about what we see as the future for live events. Well, obviously, what's happening right now, but then what's going to be happening down the road. And then we're going to get into another aspect of traditionally in-person events, which are educational events, so certifications, that kind of thing. We'll talk about where that is now and kind of where there are some options for pivoting given what's happening in the world today. So Ben.
Yeah, I'll kick this off, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about Breezio when we get into this too. But as it says, we are redefining online engagement one community at a time. We've got publishing tools and collaboration in real time in a way that other communities don't in the market. So we're really excited primarily to be serving the association and nonprofit markets, and really glad that we could that I could be here to put this on here with Adage and Cvent.
Yeah, and Adage, for anybody who's joining us for the first time, we are a strategy, design, technology, and analytics firm in downtown Chicago. We work with about 87% nonprofits, about 75 people on staff, and really our goal is to tie all technologies into a cohesive ecosystem and provide the best possible user experience for our clients. And now James.
All right, so Cvent, been around for about 20 years. It's an end-to-end event technology platform, headquartered out in Northern Virginia, but we have offices all over the world. And my role at the company specifically, and why I'm on the call today, is I work with associations and nonprofits. So at Cvent, we service over 4,000 association and nonprofit organizations, giving them event technology to power their events.
All right, so we are going to start with the poll. I did have this in our last webinar, but I'm too much of a Seinfeld fan to move on from it. So Ben is going to pull up our poll, and I'm going to make sure everybody can see this. If anybody can confirm that this is on the screen right now.
I can see it.
All
Love the
right.
choices, by the
We've
way.
got the first poll up. So get in, vote. We've got what's the best part about virtual events? This is a multiple choice question. I can multitask during the event. I don't have to get dressed. The food is better at my house, depending on the conference you go to. There you go. A couple of people have already voted for that. You know, the standard day 2 conference fajitas bar doesn't always live up to expectations. So I know that's real. And then it's easier to focus on the content without the conference happening. Hop in and vote. We want to get everybody in on this. Look, we've got 78% of people voting. Good.
And
If you're like listening to us from across the room, you're grabbing a coffee in your kitchen, run back to your computer and vote for us real quick. Let's see if we can get 100%. We're at 84% now. It's pretty good.
nice.
So we just wanted to get a little feedback on that. Yeah.
So Ben, I just got our 1 minute countdown. I'll do a better job of that next time, but Ben, thanks for that. I was not able to see the results and pull them up. So if you could share those, let's do your 10-second countdown here.
I just ended. We had almost 90%, so I'm going to go ahead and share the results. Can everybody see these?
See that awesome now. So people value multitasking and being able to focus on the content without, all of the things that come with a conference happening at the same time. So thanks for answering the poll, and we can move on from here. So Ben, you have the floor.
Excellent. Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing in the market right now. So first of all, I'll talk briefly about the promotion that we're running here. One of our competitors in the market kind of led out with this idea, and I really appreciate it, and I think that their intent was very genuine, and so we're going to follow suit, and we're going to be offering a virtual event space for free to some associations that had an on-site in-person event scheduled that they had to cancel and that they're going to turn into a virtual conference. We've got some really cool features in here with the including discussions, live video conferencing built right in, video hosting, some other tools. So if you're interested in that, reach out to us. I'm plugging that here, not because we're trying to sell software with it, but because we really want to give associations an opportunity to have a good virtual event space to do that. On the AMS Geek side, I will say that we are working a lot on normal AMS projects that we normally do, but there's certainly continues to be an uptick on integrations with registration platforms and webinar platforms like Cvent, running them for registration. We used them for our webinar here. It was very easy to set up and streamlined, and then Zoom and GoToWebinar, and just everything from automating getting those registrants from your AMS or whatever that registration tool is, like Cvent, into your webinar platforms, and then also reporting back to your CRMs and AMSs, who logged in, how long were they logged in, when did they log out, some of that information. Some people have credentialing in CEUs and things like that people can earn for sitting on webinars. So we try to streamline that and make it easier. Some of the groups that we've talked to have said, hey, we've always done webinars, but we're doubling or tripling the amount of webinars that we're doing now. I think everybody's, we're inundated with webinars. I feel really fortunate that you're all here with us today, because I know there's a lot of competition for online content consumption right now. So I'm glad you could join us here. But I just thought I'd share those trends with you on what we're seeing over on the Geek side.
Cool. Congrats on that one today. This is,
thanks a lot.
This is a slide that we showed last time, and the question was, how do you take 20,000 people out of a conference center and move them all online? And we are very fortunate to have James as our expert here today, who can talk through what they're seeing. And that's the great thing about collaborating with Ben on this, is we're able to kind of pool our networks, and we are thrilled to have James here with us. So I will now turn it over to him, and let him go from here.
Good deal. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Ben. Yeah, that's the $1 million question. How do you take a 20,000 person event and move it online, right? So the way that we're looking at things at Cvent, which, by the way, a little bit more of a background on Cvent. I know I gave a quick overview before, but we provide end-to-end event management technology. So really the entire life cycle of an event could be managed through our platform. So what we're seeing organizations have to do now in the short term, because their events are being canceled or postponed, is they're having to reimagine the way that they leverage our technology. And this is the adapt component here. I see Jake pulling the slide up. So we're looking at it through this lens. Organizations are having to adapt. Then they're going to have to evolve. We have a lot of great discussion points as we go through today on what in-person events are going to look like once they do get back up and running. And then once we are comfortable with whatever that new normal will be, the transit, we want to accelerate, right? I think everybody on the line understands the value of in-person events. So we want to accelerate and move that industry forward. So probably the biggest thing we're seeing in the adapt phase right now is moving events virtual. And we had a customer story to share with you all today, just to give you a little bit more context on what other similar organizations are doing. So you might be familiar with CUE. It's a computer using educators. They have thousands of members worldwide. They do a national conference every year in March, 5,000 to 6,000 attendees. Obviously, March was a difficult month to have an event planned. A week out from the event, they had to flip a switch and decide to take it virtual. So what did that look like logistically? They used a mix of Zoom and Facebook Live. So they did some live streaming, they did some pre-recorded content, and they had to pivot. They already had registration complete for the in-person event. So they had to create a new registration path for virtual attendees. And they actually saw a 750 attendee increase by moving the event virtual, because they were able to reach an audience that they weren't able to reach before. And I'm sure a lot of you on the line have heard similar stories. That's one plus side to moving an event virtual or moving into hosting hybrid events in the future, is you could potentially be able to cast that net out a little bit farther. They went out to their speakers, they got 50 to 60% of their sessions recorded, and then they made it available online. What they also did is they took the mobile app that they had planned to use for that in-person event, and they retweaked it a little bit so that they could house some of that pre-recorded content and also link it out to some live streams. So their attendees had a couple of different ways that they can get to that content and consume that content. They had 5,400 users of the mobile app, which included, the actual downloaded app to their phone, but also logging in via a web version of that app, and had over 200,000 points of engagement. So I think engagement is a really key thing that organizations are having to think through right now as they move their events virtual. And mobile applications like the one that we offer are able to facilitate some of that engagement. Then there's the exhibitors, right? Exhibitors represent a large portion of event revenue typically. So that's also important to think through, is how are you going to be able to get them the same bang for their buck? So they were able to create a virtual exhibit hall via the mobile application and had 1,000 attendees that were able to visit that. So as of right now, they also have an event in the fall, and they're planning on moving forward with that event live. For now, obviously that is an at-risk event at this point. And even if they do it live, they're now going to build in a hybrid component to that event, and they have a lot of experience under their belt from March. You have that in-person event. Are you going to reschedule it? Are you going to cancel it outright? What we're looking at here is some interesting data from the Cvent Supplier Network. The Cvent Supplier Network, we have a global database with over 240,000 venues and destinations, and it allows planners to search for a venue based on their particular needs, and then create a customized RFP, or request for proposal, send it out to multiple properties at once, and they're then able to blind bid back on their business. And it's actually a tool that in large part we offer for free because of the advertising revenue that we get from these properties. So some interesting data looking right here. This is the percentage of RFPs sent through the Cvent system for event dates happening September to December of 2020. And this is a year-over-year graph, purple being 2019, green being 2020. And if you look at week 12, the week of March 15th, it's pretty incredible the percentage of events and how they jumped up year over year, looking into moving those live events later in the year. And if you can go to the next slide, it's not just the fact that it's out, properties are actually awarding this business. So I think everyone is aware hotels are hurting right now. They're looking for ways to capture business. And what they're able to do right now is actually capture business earlier in a cycle than they typically would as a result of this activity. Similar, if you look into the year 2021, when we move into the next slide, the trend is there as well. So organizations are not saying live events are done for an extended period of time. They're looking at new dates and trying to get back at it as quickly as possible, which is represented by this data that's available through the Cvent supplier network. Also noticing is, what the booking window looks like has also increased. The average booking window that we typically see through usage of this tool is about 180 days or 6 months. And that's from the time the RFP is submitted to its place. We're now seeing that increase to as high as 282 days, which again is allowing these venues and planners to connect and get this finalized much farther in advance of the event than they typically would.
And James, who again, just talk about who has access to that network again. I just want to make sure that people understand the types of folks that, can they be using that on the association side, or is that strictly for people that have certain event planning credentials?
Everybody uses it. This is wide open to everybody. Just for some added context there, when my wife and I got married several years ago, we used the event supplier for wedding venues. So it's any event planner, but obviously I speak more to associations and other industries who are leveraging this tool. What's also important to note, this tool is being leveraged by many of the top third-party planning agencies that are out there as well, like Conference Direct, Helms, Briscoe, American Express Meetings. So if any of you all are outsourcing the sourcing component to your event to one of those agencies, they're leveraging this product as well, which is feeding into this data.
Excellent.
All right, so
Thanks.
once we get past the adapt phase and we start doing these in-person events, now it's where we have to evolve, right? And I'm just going to give a couple of examples of things that our customers are talking to us, and then we'll go into some others in more detail a little bit later on. But it's little things like session registration and setting session capacities. When in-person events start back up again, you're going to have to be able to manage logistics a lot more tightly, especially if social distancing guidelines are still in place. Historically, a lot of event planners have not done pre-registration for all their sessions. And there's good reason for that. They want to drive conversions out of the gate, get people in, get them registered, get that payment. Some organizations will then let attendees come in at a later point and say, hey, here are the different sessions and activities that I want to attend, so that planners have a better idea. The difference now is that planners don't necessarily have that historical data to go off of, because this is a new normal, right? So being able to set up session capacities and track as registrations are coming in, how many people are registering for these individual sessions is going to allow for an easier way to manage that on site. Going over to the next slide, social tables. Many of you have probably used this before. This is a product that hoteliers will use in collaboration with planners that are doing events at their property, but also a tool planners will license themselves to do floor diagramming and seating management for their events. So this is a pivot that we've been making with this product now, is building in social distancing guidelines, setting capacities for each one of these rooms, building in things like hand sanitizing stations. And this is a tool that you can invite other collaborators into this diagramming space as well to provide real-time feedback. And that could include a rep at the hotel or anybody that's working with you on the execution of the event. Actually spoke to a planner last week who was talking about what the breakout experience might look like. If you have a high demand for a breakout and you're having to sit people 6 feet apart, for example, what do you do when there is such high demand that you're not able to accommodate all of those people right there on site? She was talking about having spillover rooms dedicated at the venue for this very thing and live streaming that breakout session content to those folks. You're not able to plan that if you're not getting the session registration ahead of time, as well as being able to imagine the space through diagramming tools like this. So again, just a couple of things that that we've had conversations with other association professionals about as they're starting to think through the training.
Awesome. Excuse me. Thanks so much, James. I know you've got some more stories to tell. But when we were planning for this, we started talking about, who is, there are lots and lots of people that are impacted by the measures that are in place and, events getting canceled. We started kind of brainstorming what is the true impact of live events. We kind of, we made it into like 4 buckets. So we think about these, obviously have huge the attendees and then the vendors and the cities, restaurants, taxis, hotels, everything. And we think we've got some pretty good ideas about how we can help the top 3. Unfortunately, we don't really have anything that we can talk about with cities, but I'm asking my panelists to jump in wherever they see fit. But the association, very high level, the community that they provide. So the associations provide that great sense of community, and you're not going to get that the same way you used to when you have to cancel live events. Same with revenue. Obviously, you're losing lots of revenue, and if you're not, pivoting to virtual, that's going to go away, which is a crisis mode for a lot of associations. And there's just the member value in general. So, you have an association it's kind of a family, and that's a member benefit. Is it going to that annual conference or whatever the conference might be, the live event? Huge impact there. I don't know if you guys have anything to add there before I move on.
I've heard over the last few years, there's been a few studies done. I haven't been a part of them, but like ASA put one out that they surveyed their members. And if I recall correctly, the annual meeting and the online community were like the 2 most valuable things. And it's because people want to connect with their peers. And so, that's a huge, a huge loss, and not having the in-person events for sure.
That's consistent with our research too. We've gone to many of our clients' conferences to do user research, and frequently that's, top 5, if not number 1, that the conference or the live events are the number 1 member value. It extends to beyond some of the more obvious things, like usually get your certifications, that sort of thing. But also frequently there's that community aspect, there's that networking aspect, and people really just trying to connect with old friends. It's really amazing to see that. It's really your friends that you're going to see in a large way.
Right, and that's kind of what's covered.
Yeah, and you could
go
almost, go ahead, Jay. I was going to say, you can almost go backwards with those slides too. The reality is if attendees aren't seeing the value that they want out of it, that could ultimately impact the association because they're not getting those things. Like retention might get impacted by it. So it kind of goes in both directions there.
Yeah, and I think we just touched on kind of what the impact is to the attendees. Joe mentioned the education, getting certifications, opportunities, networking opportunities, whether that's advancing their career, and then of course the entertainment aspect. Everybody likes to see their friends once a year.
Absolutely.
It's going to be rough when we can't see Ben at 3 or 4 events a year. It's a rough time for us.
If you didn't see me at the bar at the event, I probably wasn't there. So,
but then the last one is vendors, like all of us. We value the exposure that we get when we get a booth or we get speaking opportunities at a large conference where we can reach a lot of people. And then the third piece is really the data. We'll dig into this a little bit more, but we get a lot of data. We learn a lot, and we kind of understand the trends that are happening in the industry. It's something that we're going to have to figure out another way to get when we can't have live events.
Yeah, on that vendors note too, I just wanted to jump in on that because there's a lot of partners, vendors, people who are just part of the ecosystem who also are going to miss out on the live events. You may not even be like an official vendor at the event, but you might have still gone to the city where the event is to conduct business and network. And that that part's gone as well.
So
when we were on the phone the other day, I had a quick story about that too. We just sponsored the ProTech User Conference, so we were really happy to partner with them and sponsor that. But when they virtual, for me, a lot of the value was lost because, it's great to be able to brand a bunch of things and get out in front of people during a virtual conference, but there's nobody that works a show floor like I do. So the value was decreased for me a little bit. And having gone virtual, because I don't have a gigantic marketing machine behind us, thankfully I've got like awesome partners like Adage and Cvent, and we can get on and talk about some of these things and engage our community. But it's a challenge because everybody's outfitted a little differently for those things. So from a vendor perspective, I can tell you that we were directly impacted by that significantly.
Right.
In the last
So the
month.
next kind of discussion piece is how do we replace that? And we touched on it a little bit. I mean, the thing that we always talk about at Adage, especially with large digital transformation initiatives, is the importance of truly becoming a digital business, and embracing that, because, at this point you can't be hybrid. You have to have virtual. And Joe had the other day, and I'll let him talk a little bit more about it, but that digital transformation has been accelerated by 18 months because of the pandemic.
Yeah, and I mean, this is, maybe it's more than in some cases for the digital laggards, if you will. I mean, this might have been a 5-year acceleration. I mean, all of a sudden there's a mad dash to get virtual and adjust business models, and people are jumping in a big way.
And that's what this kind of covers. A lot of associations have been hesitant in the past to take those kind of leaps. And then we started talking about, look at some other industries like the restaurant industry. There's, people that I know of that have never, ever a week talked about last time, but they're looking into different ways to social distance once we can start getting people back. And I know Joe had a couple notes to add about that too.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see the event planning version of, you talked about the social seating. Adage actually has a product that's very, very similar to that called Smart Seat that handles not only the seating configurations, but also the kind of scheduling and purchasing of the and so forth. Really interesting. Some of the vision work we're doing right now is to kind of conceptualize what can a theater look like, or symphony, or an orchestra, or even an aquarium or museum, to accommodate both, timed entry to flow, and also maintain social distancing. So really fascinating work happening around, how can we possibly think of a theater experience or some sort of live performance event. A lot of interest concepts coming out of that. Everything from changing the entire concept of what a theater experience is. People are talking about one-person shows, or they're talking about maybe you go to a portion of an event and then you're asked to move on. So really cool stuff happening. Real innovation. Yeah,
and the point of this is that you trust you do your banking online. You trust that they'll be able to take care of that. And now healthcare. I mean, telemedicine has come out of nowhere because of this shift. You're getting, you can get diagnosed for diseases. You can get medication, all with telemedicine, which, who would have thought that would have happened just a couple months ago? So
yeah, isn't that wild? You're actually getting prescriptions after a video meeting with your doctor. It's pretty great.
Just want to make sure that your video is nice and crystal clear when you're getting diagnosed by a doctor. Right.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah, this is an example of that acceleration, though, right? Like, it's not just the businesses pivoting; it's the kind of consumer mentality shift too. I mean, the idea of going online pediatrician might have been, just like, no, I'm not going to do that. But now, people are willing to take that leap, and I think they're learning that it can work in a lot of ways.
So I'll keep going to our next topics. What the future holds. So the next poll we have, Ben, if you want to pop that up.
All right, here we go. So poll number 2, launch polling. Here we go. So what do you miss most about in-person events? This is a multiple choice as well. Is it networking at the bar and after hours? Is it having a hotel room to myself to take midday naps? We know some of you association executives, We know you miss those upgrades and getting your suite and being able to have a little bit of time to recharge and go down and power network with some of the other execs. So be honest about those naps. But get on. We've got 50% participation already within a few seconds.
Started the countdown.
Yeah, right. So we've got over 60% participation. Come in and vote, and then prospecting for future locations. I mean, that was something that we talked about as something that several aspects of the ecosystem kind of suffer from, right? The locations don't get to be seen by as many people, but people go to, Salt Lake City. I didn't know until ASAE Annual had their conference over that I was going to like Salt Lake so much. And that was a fantastic venue, great city. We had a good time there. So most of these, looks like most of the votes are coming in under human interaction in general and pre and post content. So I'm going to be your mom and give you the countdown.
10
3,
seconds. Oh, there you
2.
go.
Yeah, no, we're keeping it short. If you're not at your mouse, you're missing out. We're going to close it off in 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm going to share these polling results, and you can see how your peers had an opportunity to speak up on this as well. And by a landslide, it was human interaction in general, and then the networking at the bar after hours, which of course, when we say bar and after hours, we don't mean sessions in any possible way. So a good portion of you certainly miss drinking with our industry friends and hanging out in fun venues.
Nobody wanted to take a nap at the hotel.
Apparently.
But so Ben, when we were prepping this was an actual quote by Ben. Live events will be back in a big way. I'll let him talk a little bit more before we kind of move on. But Ben, if you just want to give us what you think, and then we move.
Yeah, excellent. First of all, an homage to the Orange and my buddy Jim Katz over there. That's a great pick. What conference was that?
Annual in
Chicago.
It's 2 years ago.
Fantastic. Look at that. A few handsome guys there. 2 good haircuts on the ends at least. So yeah, I mean, I think that, I've talked to some associations. Joe had this really great piece on MVPs in the last webinar, in that wasn't really acceptable for a while. And then the planning people would have done for 2 years, they spun up in 2 weeks. And I was really impressed with what the associations around us had been doing and did so quickly. And I think that what I'm hearing is that these are easier than they thought. And from an engagement perspective, and even from a revenue perspective, that'll continue. I think people will run more virtual events and webinars than they had before, but I don't think in any way it's going to replace any of the on-site meetings. And I think that, I joked about it, but really, I think a lot of the executives that do get put up in their suites when they travel and this and that, they host events too. They want to go to these cities to see if they want to have an event there. They want to get there to be able to network in person with some of the executives that maybe it's easier to have that conversation when sessions are going on and they're out in the hallway by themselves. And then the rest of us, I mean, from a vendor perspective, I miss terribly, my friends over at Association Analytics and, a lot of the AMS companies that we work with. And, we do better at prospecting when we get out there. So everybody's eager to get back to events. And I think that the associations are going to use virtual more so moving forward, but I don't think in any way. I think if anything, this makes us appreciate what we're able to not only accomplish in person, but also the experiences that we're missing out on and some of the fun that we have in being part of this really great, unique ecosystem that is the association and nonprofit market. So.
No, I was just going to say it's almost like we've taken events for granted almost. And this whole experience is making us realize just how valuable that in-person interaction is. We're trying to replicate with virtual, and I do think that there's some value that can happen there. But I'm with you, Ben. There's nothing that replaces the value of face-to-face.
Yeah, and that's because the emotional and social aspect, which is reflected here and was reflected in the answers to our poll. Everybody just says, we can't wait to get back to it, when the time comes that it's safe and appropriate. So let's do a quick 30-second poll. I want to keep us on track here. I know we are a little chatty, so this is happening for the second webinar in a row. But, and I just lost.
So the next two ASA events, we've got the poll up now. Vote. Click your button. Let's go. It's easy. We're running a webinar here. You could vote. Come on. All right, free. Now that's coming in. So will you attend ASA annual or tech? The first option is no to annual, maybe to tech. That was my feeling. No for both. Yes, if they have them. I love them, but these people aren't worth risking my life. So those are your options here. I think, in my mind, I'm not in a hurry to put any of my staff on a plane and send them out to Vegas. I may have joked about this before, and I'll say it again. If anybody knows me, you know that I want to be on the ground in Vegas for an association show. There is nothing that sounds better to me, but yeah, we're not to back last week saying, hey, just a reminder that we're offering full refunds in case you wanted to pull your booth. So I don't know if that's a sign of what's to come, if they're just trying to do a little housekeeping, if they're getting an idea of who's engaged and planning to come and who's not. But
let's do a couple more seconds here.
Yeah, I think you're good. Can I, yeah, let's, all right. 3, 2, it's off. All right, thank you for voting. We had 76% participation. The other people are pouring themselves a glass of wine right now, probably. All right, so we're going to share the results briefly and pretty heavily toward yes, if they have them. It just goes to show you that people really want to go to these. And we, I mean, we have to see how this COVID thing starts to play out, but definitely, hedging on the yes, we want to go. So I appreciate everybody sharing.
Yeah. All right. To keep it moving, these are a couple of the points that Joe had made I thought were worth bringing up. The first thing was that, we all want to get back to live events. We all want to get back to conferences. But the first piece here is that mechanisms will be put in place. And James touched on that a little bit. Joe talked about that with theaters.
This is
I'll turn it over to Joe at this point.
Kind of amusing image of this bubble boy, but this is a real thing. I found this on Indiegogo last night. Anyway, the point really is that as much as we want to go back to live events, there's going to be some changes in how those happen. And Governor Pritzker here in Illinois was on the news last night talking about how there is no return to normal. That concept is gone. Until there's a vaccine or some really effective treatment, we can expect, to be wearing masks everywhere. We can expect to have the our environment that we're standing further apart, and pretty much can expect people to be wearing face masks of some kind in public for some time to come. And, the last point there was now's a good time to invest in tape.
Well, you're jumping a little bit ahead of us. I know Ben wanted to talk about what he thinks is going to happen with handshake, because Joe and most people think that handshakes will be kind of killed off at this point, at least for the near future. But this is what Ben thinks is going to happen. So I'll let Ben talk about this. Don't blame me.
Admittedly, on TikTok, it's somehow this new dance that everybody's doing to tap their feet together. So I mean, some people are doing the elbows. Are we going to be dancing with people? Well, I don't know. But some precautions taken, and hopefully this doesn't go from an online trend to an in-person trend. Because I don't know if I can handle it. I don't know if I'm nimble enough to pull off that greeting at an event.
Don't sell yourself short.
I see what's part 3. You guys are going to have that queued up, huh? On video.
Right.
Oh boy. But Joe touched on the masks being the new norm. I think that there's some truth with that. The last piece was tape.
It's coming your way. Again, this is the mediation of the environment here that's going to be necessary to keep people socially distanced. Got some funny examples there. So
the next piece, the other traditionally in-person activities where our certification testing, live testing, proctored applications, and how that's going to shift to virtual, or how it absolutely needs to shift to virtual. So poll is coming up. We'll do another real quick one, Ben, if you can fire that up.
Real fast. Yeah, let's do it. Virtual testing. Here we go. So please vote. The question is, would you trust a virtual testing or certification process? And the answers are yes, we do. We do it now and it's awesome. Yes, but I don't know how that would work. No, we tried it and failed. And no, that seems ridiculous. And it's really interesting. I mean, Jay, do you want to just talk about the technology?
We looked into this quite a bit. We obviously know of clients that are doing virtual testing now, but there are some holdouts that, say that they absolutely cannot be doing virtual testing because of just traditionally that's what they've done. But we talked a lot about like virtual proctoring and how that is in some ways, and actually in most ways, a better way to ensure validity of tests, and it's more effective than actually having a live proctor in the traditional sense. They do things like biometric keystroke signatures when you start. There's a live proctor looking at you. Facial comparisons. These happen with all of these kind of softwares. And then there's a story that I saw about even like a posture check. When somebody started slumping down in their seat, the proctor snapped them back up and kept things rolling. And then the other things that I'd seen about, or some stories where if you read the questions aloud, it's like that flags the proctor right away. You can't have any interruptions. You can't have smartwatches. And then there's also like post-exam proctor reviews to make sure that the test was. Ben, looks like you popped in the results here, and we do it now, and it's awesome, and they would like to. So it's great to hear that everybody.
That's interesting. If you're doing this now, I would love for you to put in the chat what you're using. I'd love to learn a little bit more. If you're already doing something like this, what you're using, it'd be great.
And so that we're getting kind of towards the end here, but we wanted to just open it up for discussion. Panelists can go too, but Ben, I think you're going to open it up to everybody if they wanted to chime in at all. We would be more than thrilled for you to participate in a little discussion here at the end.
Yeah, Q&A here at the end, and ultimately, again, I want to remind everybody how this came about. We have discussions on a regular basis as partners just about things that we have going on in the market, things that we're seeing clients do. You guys appreciate the conversational nature of this, but having James be able to join us today to be able to share some data and things that they're seeing go on over at Cvent. Obviously, they've got a larger canvas. James, that was impressive. But how many employees does Cvent
4,400 worldwide.
So you were able to, in the overview slide, describe Cvent in 15 seconds for that large of a company. So that's impressive.
Well, I had to double back when I got a second opportunity though. So if you add that time to it.
Yeah, I get it. No, end to end covers it though. That's fantastic. And we've worked with several pieces of your tech. So if anybody has any questions for James.
Dude, yeah, let me put this up actually so that we can connect with James. If you take out your app, we did this last time, but if you take out your phone and open the LinkedIn app, we're going to put our QR codes up here in a second. So if you just click on the little QR code in the search box, that will show you the LinkedIn code. It'll show the camera, which you'll be able to scan in a second. We are going to be doing another one of these in about 2 weeks. And right now we're thinking we're going to be talking LMS, probably hopefully getting an LMS participant as a guest panelist like James was so willing to do today. And we thank him again for that. And then in the future, we're thinking some topics around data. And hopefully, well, we'll see what happens in part 5, but figure out if we're still in quarantine. So I don't know if anybody wants to chime in with any questions, but we obviously would love to connect with anybody. So if you want to add us on LinkedIn, that would be an easy way. We also have our emails up. Yeah, we welcome any conversation that we can have. You know, not a whole lot as possible.
Mhm.
I don't know, gentlemen, if you have any closing thoughts or things that popped into your head.
I was really surprised by the poll response with the proctoring. I never would have guessed it was half the.
Right, that people were already doing that. Yeah, I found that pretty interesting as well. When you guys brought it up on the call, I guess I hadn't really researched or looked into it, but the fact that they've got these cameras that watch your eye line, and they have you type your name and a few things a number of times so they can get sort of capture like the cadence of how you type things and keep up with that. I didn't really know that was as mainstream as it is. We had, almost as many people say that they were doing it as that they said would trust it, but don't know anything about it. So I found that interesting.
Yeah, I mean, and when some of the research I was doing, it showed that, there was only, I think 5 years ago, there were 15 technology platforms that could do visual proctoring, and that's doubled in the last 5 years. And I think I would expect it to accelerate much more than that,
double that next week,
especially in a reaction.
Right.
Yeah.
James, anything
right, well,
anything big and shaking over at Cvent right now?
Lots of big things. There's going to be a big announcement that comes out tomorrow about our Cvent Connect conference that is supposed to happen in person in June. So I can't give it away on today's webinar, but if you connect with me on LinkedIn, then you'll see the big announcement tomorrow.
Wow.
So there's some incentive.
England carrot.
There you go.
No, we're excited, and if anybody on the line had planned on going to IMEX, Cvent powers the registration for IMEX. They're of course going fully virtual, and they're doing a lot of really cool, innovative stuff with their virtual conference. So that's also something to take a look at if you're looking for some virtual conferences for the industry that you'd like to attend.
Excellent. Thanks, James. How are we doing, Jake? Are we? I think we're good. If anybody will hang out for a couple of minutes, I think, is it safe to say, Jake, that we're wrapped up from a content perspective? Please connect with us on LinkedIn, and we'll hang out for a couple of minutes in case anybody wants to lob in any final questions.
You guys want to stop the recording and